Cool, so I'm here today with Davis Causey, Strolling Bones recording artist, among many other things. And just want to get to know you, Davis. You've had such a long, incredible career. It's great to get to talk to you. I've been listening to your music a lot over the past month. You're a native Athenian.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah. Born in Atlanta, but moved here when I was like a year old and been here ever since. Tried leaving a few times, it didn't take.
I find that happens. It's kind of still a pretty magical place.
Yeah, it's got attached strings somehow.
Yeah.
Strings again.
Yeah, that's a big theme in your life. What was Athens like back then?
It was, well, the place where we lived on West Lake was outside of the city limits.
Okay.
And Baxter Street was a dirt road until you hit Millage.
Wow.
And there were, where Beechwood Shopping Center is, they used to land crop dusting airplanes there. And,
that's incredible.
Yeah, so it was a small town that got big on football weekends, but nothing like it is now.
Right.
You know.
So did you go to University of Georgia as well?
I went there for a year, and of course, then back in that was the years 1969, 70, during the Vietnam War. And they had a lottery drawing for the draft, and I had a large number, so they weren't teaching rock and roll courses there, so I dropped out.
Right.
I had plenty. And,
That's
I
great.
went for a year. Yeah.
Was it? I mean, I'm sure it was very scary being potentially drafted, but having such a high number, you felt relatively safe.
Yeah, it was pretty much guaranteed to probably never get that high.
Okay. So I've talked to many people from that era, and I can't really. Of course, I was in 10th grade when 9/11 happened, and I had that feeling then of like, I'm 16. Is there going to be a draft that happens 2 years from now? Never knowing anything, but I can't really imagine what it was like to draw that number or like wait to know.
Oh yeah,
I can't really imagine that feeling.
It was a tense evening. I remember that. There was a lot of celebrating and a lot of crying going on at the same time. So.
When did you first pick up the guitar? Were you from a musical family, or did you have parents?
A little bit. My mom played a little bit of piano. My father sang really good. But I started taking ukulele down at the Y here in Athens, at the YMCA when it was downtown. And it just, something struck me. I don't know what it was. I just loved it. And it turns out my next door neighbor, she had an old Martin guitar, and I would go over to her house every day and just till my fingers got raw and play, and it just spoke to me. It was I think I was 11 when I started.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So you just felt almost an instant connection.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't have any idea that I would try to make a living or doing that. I just knew I loved it, and
right.
It was just something that something I felt I had to do.
So from there, were you listening to the radio and records and kind of trying to emulate them, or did your parents get you lessons? Or?
I got lessons after I'd been playing a little while because they saw that I was not going to bail out on it like I did piano lessons. Right. But my older brother was 6 years older than me, so he was right in the era of rock and roll, in the 50s. And my father had a rule: he could play all the Little Richard and Bill Haley and the Comets and all that kind of stuff during the day, but at night he had to play something. So I'd hear a lot of Chet Atkins.
Oh, cool.
He played Chet Atkins as instrumental, there's no vocals or anything. And also Jackie Gleason had several albums out of music that he wrote and orchestrated.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, which a lot of people don't know. But
I actually did not know that at all.
So we would listen. I'd go to sleep at night listening to Chet Atkins. So he was a really big influence. Not that I can play like him, but he was the guitar player then. That everybody wanted to be.
Yeah.
He was George Harrison's hero, everybody's hero. Yeah. But played on all the other Everly Brothers stuff and produced them. So, but yeah, that's what I started, was on ukulele, and then went to guitar.
So is that from there, from taking lessons and stuff? Did you have I think George told me your first band was called the Jesters. Is that right?
That's not the first band, but that was one that kind of where we made kind of a mark and everything.
So, but in high school, were you playing with buddies eventually in cover bands and stuff like that?
Yeah, well, that's what we did. We'd play. The Temptations, and Otis Redding, and what they call beach music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Were you also collecting music a lot at this point, buying a lot of 45s and LPs and stuff?
Just usually stuff we wanted to learn.
Gotcha.
Right. You go out and you'd go buy the 45, or if it was on, on LP, you used to have a trick. If it was on a record at 33, you could slow it down to 16. And it would take it down an octave, but it would slow it down, and you could figure out what they were doing.
Ah, that's smart.
Yeah. And of course, now you just got a lock knob. You can just turn and do all that stuff.
Yeah,
But it was,
it's a little easier now.
yeah. I thought when I was taking guitar lessons, my guitar player teacher was a kind of a jazzist, and I thought that's what I might end up doing, is playing like, not the bebop kind of jazz guitar, but just the kind of rhythm stuff, you know,
Right.
choo, 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 that stuff. And then along comes Duane Allman and Jimi Hendrix, and I just have to pull off the road and say, I got to start over. You know, damn it. You know, because I mean, I was floored. I had no idea that that could be done with a guitar, really. You know, I mean, you
can imagine at the time, there was literally, I think it's so hard for me sometimes to put myself in that mindset of, you know, I can pull out my phone now and listen to anything I want to all the time, and it's harder to be surprised.
Yeah.
But I can't imagine back then, there's kind of like a before and after those people moment. It's like the guitar before them,
yeah.
and then the guitar, it's like a fork in the road or something.
Yeah.
It just...
Well, you used to listen to radio, and you have to wait for your favorite song to be played. You know, they might play it once every hour, every 2 hours.
Right.
You know, then you'd look forward to an album coming out for 6 months. Oh, they got an album that's going to be out,
Right.
you know. And you'd hear rumors and all this kind of stuff, and now it's like instant gratification,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, the build-up
It took
back
you so
then.
long. you
Yeah.
know.
So Jimmy and Duane took your life in a different direction.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Yeah.
we kind of skipped over the Jesters. The Jesters was your band before Randall. So are you 19, 20 at this point in the Jesters? Is it like college age?
I was 15, 16,
Oh,
17, 18.
Okay, no, this is still in high school.
Yeah, this is before we went to college.
What did your parents think about this?
Oh, it was great. I mean, you know, my father used to joke around. He said I was cursed because my mother was a journalist, and he said I was cursed to support 3 musicians and a journalist. And but the thing is, I started playing out at the VFW on Sunset every Saturday night when I was like 13 or 14 years old.
Wow.
And we'd make like $20 or $25. Well, I'd come in every night, Saturday night, and put it on their bedside table. And, you know, they would eventually use it, you know, for me, but at the time they were using it for household stuff.
Right. Wow.
So it was kind of, you know, the guitar lessons paid off.
Right. Yeah. You repaid them early.
Yeah.
That's a pretty fast. I mean,
yeah, I was able to support, you know, I could do things in high school that a lot of people couldn't do because I had a little extra money coming in. It wasn't just like a, you know, job at a hardware store or something.
yeah, that's a lot of money back then too.
Oh yeah.
And usually cash, I would assume.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. So did your parents, I mean, maybe even if they didn't show it at the time later on, did they sort of let you know that they realized sort of early on that you were maybe a little...
Oh, my mom was always a big supporter.
Yeah.
And my dad was too. He just wasn't, he was just one of those World War II vets that
Yeah.
didn't say much. You know,
He's a dad
was
of that
very
era.
closed in and
Yeah.
everything. And, but, you know, all very, not selfish at all, you know.
They could tell that you were serious though, and
Just,
that you were
just
also
couldn't
talented.
just couldn't conceive that you might be able to make a living doing this.
Yeah.
He wanted me to have a backup plan.
Oh yeah.
You know, don't quit your day gig, basically. You know. So.
Yeah. I mean, my dad just retired from being a professor at the University of Georgia. He's a business professor, and I knew what I wanted to do to be working in the studio starting when I was 16, and the sale pitch to them about, well, I'm not going to use the Hope Scholarship. I'm going to go to Indiana University and pay out-of-state tuition because that's what the thing I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that was met with pretty big not resistance, but yes. You can go if you try for a year, and if it's not working,
Yeah.
you're coming right back here. But you know, it worked.
Cool.
So I know that feeling for sure. Of
Yeah.
I guess it's like, so I don't want to say supportive pressure, but practical, being extremely practical is really the best way to put it.
Yeah, it's just, you know, there's no, you don't play music for 40 years and get a gold watch and a pension.
Right, man, that's so early playing at the VFW, 15 and 16. That's like, yeah. So then that goes into the Jesters. The Jesters, you all make a few records.
Main thing came from backing up different acts that came down to the South who needed a band.
Because that was a common thing at the time, right?
Yeah,
like a
yeah.
musician wouldn't tour with a band to cut costs. They'd
Well,
come down
and also at the time you had to realize that a lot of times, you know, it was hard to find for a black band to find places to stay,
right,
eat,
right.
all that kind of stuff. And so if they were playing in a white club, you know, it just made sense financially to have, you know, like a white band like us open up, play a set, and back them up.
Right.
So that's, you know, we got.
Who are some of the people that you played with?
With Marvin Gaye, you mentioned Jackie Wilson, Martha and the Vandellas, the Platters, the Tams, just a bunch of those acts like that. I'm sure I'll think of other ones later on. But.
And would you do that just in Athens, or would they kind of come
no.
to Georgia and then
it was
you would
hardly
play
ever.
like...
It was hardly ever in Athens because we were from Athens. It wasn't cool to have a band from Athens to play your thing. You had to have a band from out of town.
I see.
So we would meet the bands from North and South Carolina coming down the interstate to play Athens, and we'd be going up to play their university towns because we were from out of town.
See.
Yeah.
That would be a much better draw.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So you were playing places in the Carolinas or Macon maybe, or places
Florida,
like that, Florida.
Alabama, just all around the South.
So would it be one of those things where, I know, talking to some musicians of your era, it's like y'all would play your set, you'd back them up, but then there might also be like a third late night set, or sometimes that artist would do two or three sets a night.
We'd play a set, Marvin would come on. Take a break, we'd play a set, then Marvin would come on.
So you used to do two a night?
Yeah, every night.
Wow. So how many hours of playing are we talking about?
About 4 hours. Wow. Yeah. But thing is, it would start right at 8 and it would have to right at 12 because those are the hours they could serve alcohol.
Right.
So it wasn't an all-night thing like it is now.
Right.
So.
Were the Jesters an instrumental band?
No, we played some instrumentals, the first of the set, but no, we were doing cover bands of, like I said, Otis, The Temptations, Four Tops, Jackie Wilson. We got the advantage of actually, after we backed these people up, we actually could play from their charts. So we actually had the real arrangements and everything.
Right.
So that's the reason we were kind of a known band a little bit, because we knew where the mystery chords were.
Yeah. That's great. So you actually were collecting like a physical songbook of the real arrangements. That's amazing. What's one of your favorite memories from touring in that time with backing some of these people up?
Well, tough story I've told George and there's several others. Like at the time when we backed up Marvin Gaye, it was in 1967, and back then at the South, by that time they had to let him stay at the hotel. They couldn't, but they didn't have to let him play golf. So he'd bought his clubs and he couldn't play golf, so there was a driving range that would let him go out and hit. So I would go pick him up in my old '61 Chevrolet and drive him over to the driving range and sit there while he hit golf balls, and he'd tell me some stories. And then that was a positive thing, and then negative things. We got chased by the KKK one night because we refused to be. We went into the restaurant with the platters and they wouldn't seat them, so we said, well, we're all leaving. And so the KKK followed us out, and finally a cop car pulled us over and told those guys to go home, but it was a little scary.
Yeah, where was that, in Georgia?
That was in South Carolina.
South Carolina.
The Poor Boy Club, I think.
Yeah, that's, I can imagine y'all working with a lot of black artists, that things like that.
Well, they were our heroes. I mean, that was the thing back then. It was just starting this thing of, the kids were always ahead of the parents, as far as when, they used to try to hide who the black artists were on radio sometimes. Right. But they were the people that we liked, and looked up to. So it wasn't a problem with us. You're
backing up these bands. This is before Randall, before you met Randall. Mm-hmm. How does it go from y'all and you and Randall's relationship to kind of, meeting Chuck and sort of becoming part of like what's going on down at Capricorn?
Well, me and Randall were playing in Athens with a guy named Terry Melton. That's the thing about Athens music. Most people nowadays think the Athens music scene started with the B-52s and REM and those kind. There was stuff going on way before that doesn't ever get mentioned, and it's a little bit bothersome to me.
Well, what are the names of some of your favorite earlier artists? So just so people.
Well,
know.
just like I was saying, Terry Melton, he started the Last Resort, which was the first live music place in Athens that wasn't an AMVETS or a Veterans Club or something, and they brought in a lot of people from that you would never have heard in Athens usually. Towns Van Zandt, those kind of people.
Wow.
It was just kind of a evolution somehow. I mean, we started doing that, and then Randall left one night in the middle of a gig we were playing out in Milledgeville, and hitchhiked to Macon, and he just moved there. Just got tired
on a whim.
Yeah,
he just left.
And he wound up playing with Cowboy, and through them, Chuck had just gotten into town. He had been playing with Dr. John, and then he got hooked up with the Allman Brothers.
Okay.
And then when the Allman Brothers went through all that breakup stuff, they went through and all the stuff with Greg and Scooter and all that stuff, during sound checks before the Allman Brothers broke up, Chuck and J-Mo and Lamar used to get together at sound check because they would be the only ones that showed up usually, and just jam, just sit there and play. Right. And so they added Jimmy Dawes on guitar, and that's where Sea Level started. They were a quartet for their first album, and then they knew me and Randall because Chuck had played with us on a few gigs, and they asked us to join, and that's when we got with Sea Level.
That's great.
Yeah.
So that's the beginning of Sea Level. Did you all make all those records down at the Capricorn Studios in Macon?
Except for we did the one of Randall's down at Alan Toussaint's studio in New Orleans. Nowadays, it seems like you have just these lower tier bands, and you have this.
Right.
Well, we used to be kind of a, I guess you'd call us a middle class band.
Right.
You know, we weren't huge, but we weren't selling out stadiums, but we were, you know.
You could make a living.
We played the Fox, you know, those kind of places, and we opened up for, you know, Marshall Tucker and Doobie Brothers and different people, and you know, had an incredible record budget. Of course, I thought this was going to go on every 9 months or a year. We get this money, and then when it stopped, it was like none of us had saved anything, of course, and you know.
But you had a good time.
Oh, yeah, too good, I guess. But, no, it was a pretty magical time. You know, it really was. I kid people. I think we kind of had the golden age because nowadays, I just don't say how you can hardly make it with this download stuff.
Yeah, it's tough. I you know, being somebody that works in the studio with bands all the time and having to discuss that part of it, the budget and all those things. We're all just sort of finding creative ways to eke it out.
Yeah,
but
like I tell people, it's been a great way to almost make a living.
While you're doing Sea Level, are you also still playing gigs with other folks, studio dates, things like that?
I would come home if we had a break from Sea Level. You know, we'd come off the road, and I would bring my rig home and play with anybody who would let me on stage. I had a bad reputation for charging the stage, is what I called it. You know, if a band was playing for a week there, I'd set up behind the PA and go up there and play with them if they'd let me. You know, because I figured that's the best way to learn, is to get your ass kicked and keep on.
Yeah.
You know, but. Yeah, we got, the hardest thing was having the Dixie Dregs open for us.
Really was that?
To Steve Morse. Yeah. You know, I don't want to follow him. I told him one time, I said, I can't play as fast as you, but you can't play as slow as me. You know?
What happened after that? What did you do next?
Went to work at my family business, Farm Electric, here in Athens.
Really?
For about 8 or 9 years. You know, I was playing on the weekends.
Yeah.
You know, I had different bands around here. Randall had moved to New Orleans and stopped doing music. And then he eventually moved back up here, and that's when we started writing together. And then we eventually got a publishing deal in Nashville with Warner Chappell and did that for 3 years. And then we started making Randall's solo records.
And what about, had you made any solo records at this point yet?
In the 90s, I had one out that I just did at my studio, just, you know, very bare bones on an old 8-track Fostex 8-track machine. And so you had to commit.
Yeah.
Where you're going to put the reverb, and the EQ and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, 8-track makes you make choices.
Yeah, but no, it was, I had a lot of fun working that old studio. I've got a new one now at my house. Enjoy. That's where I did the newest one. New
Things for Old Strings. And did you do the Christmas record there as well?
No, I did that at the old studio.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, back in 93, I think.
Oh, that record's, I didn't realize that. It's like, what is that?
Well, the story is me and Jay Smith worked on it, and we were both working day gigs and didn't have a lot of money, but we wanted to give some people something for Christmas. So we made up 100 CDs and numbered them, and gave those away as Christmas presents.
That's a great gift.
So yeah, that's the way that came from. So I just gave one to George just for him to listen to for Christmas, because I was so thrilled that he had asked me to do things from old strings. And lo and behold, after Christmas, he calls me about, I want to put this out too.
That's great.
Yeah, I was tickled to death, man.
When you're producing, are you recording and playing on stuff, like helping with arrangements and doing things like that?
Yeah, that's what I like to do, is have somebody bring me a song and be able to come at it from the outside for the first time, you know.
Yeah.
And hopefully, you know, I like to work with people who are not so attached to their songs that they're afraid to try anything.
Right.
You know?
I know that's honestly one of the most.
Well,
it's like, why did you bring me here?
Yeah, well, you know, it's like you're talking about their baby or something.
Yeah.
You know, you don't want to tell anybody they got an ugly
baby ugly. Yeah. So when you were working on your new solo record, Did you look for any? Was it hard to? Because I asked this a lot about solo artists, especially now with home recording being so much easier, home production. I know I end up mixing a lot of albums from people who've recorded and produced themselves, and one of the things they tell me is like, I need you to please just take this away from me because I've lost all perspective.
Exactly, yeah.
Did you go through that moment, or did you have people helping you with it to kind of keep you more sane?
No, I had Micah helping me with me, and he's such a positive influence, just a positive attitude and everything, and just gets great sounds and everything. And but I would just have a germ of an idea and put it down, and then I'd get Mike Steele on bass and Carlton Owens on drums, and Tim White on organ and keyboards, and Randall played on it, Chuck played on the song, and I would put down the demo of it to let them listen to it, and then take their suggestions also.
Right.
Because I like the collaborative thing, and it was just a fantastic time doing that with those guys. It really was.
And they helped you not get lost in the sauce and keep it perspective.
You can't fall in love with the demo. You got to be careful about that.
We call that demoitis.
Demoitis, exactly. Yeah.
That's one of the interesting things about like the way that the internet sort of democratized art and music. It's a good thing because everyone can have a voice and be more easily heard, but at the same time, like you said,
some people don't need to be heard. I'm sorry.
Yeah, the QC has gone. There's no more. There's very little quality control anymore.
He's burying the cheese meter.
Yeah.
It's tough.
Well, I think we covered pretty much everything I wanted to talk to you about, Davis. It was really nice to talk to you today.
I really had fun and very relaxing and made it very easy. I appreciate that.
Awesome. Well, congratulations on your
Drop by the studio sometime.
I would love to. I would love to come see it.
Yeah.
I will definitely do that.
Please do.
All right.
Please do.
Great to talk to you.
Enjoyed it. Thanks.
Thank you.